think a lot of people are just lazy. Their ambition stops at following people on Instagram and looking at their stories.
Being like a junior in high school and then just seeing the Freddy Krueger Air Force Ones. So I think like they retailed at like 200, 220, something along those lines. And then now they go for like 10 grand.
Less than a month ago, I went thrifting at a Goodwill and I came across a pair of Nike Cortez from 2004. And it was a Jeff Staple collaboration, which his dunks, the pigeon dunks, go for an insane amount of money. I'm really not sure what they're going to end up selling for, but I paid $15 for them. I've got them listed for $1,400. I feel like 99% of resellers don't really know what they're doing. Even in the stores that I go into, there's still other stuff for me. I've sold a pair of Louis Vuitton heels. I think I got them for $9 and they ended up being authentic as well. And those sold for $475 on Poshmark. There's been some pretty crazy ROI flips like that, but I don't think I've ever found any like super rare sneakers other than the ones that I'm still sitting on.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Gambe.
Cheers. Welcome back to another episode of the DoughBois Podcast. My name is Flipping with Cisco, and I'm joined by some studly, lovely co-hosts, Logan and Josh McGill, and we have a lovely guest today. We have the shoe tree man himself, Mr. Dalton. How are you doing today, Dalton?
I'm doing fantastic, Cisco. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Thank you for coming. So a lot of people might know you from your social media following, all the tips that you give on how to do shoe reselling, mainly on eBay and Poshmark. I guess let's let the fans know, how did you find out about reselling and how did you even get into the space?
Sure. So I think it's a pretty typical introduction to the space for me. I was working as a server and bartender for several years. I grew up in the restaurant industry and I grew to not love it. So I happened to make a friend at a job and he introduced me. I remember one day I went into work and like before the shift ended, he said that he was headed to Ross after the shift to go flip football cleats. And that was just like a completely foreign concept to me. He didn't make much money doing it. Don't get too excited, but it did spark a little interest. And I think we stumbled across Rally Roots first on Instagram. So that sparked the garage sale. So we started doing that every weekend and it just, slowly evolved into thrift stores. And then I nailed down into only selling shoes. And I've been doing that for about 3 to 4 years now, maybe.
Nice. And then this is just a more recent question. I got to know, are you going to end up selling those boot Crocs or are you going to end up keeping them?
Oh, the boot Crocs. I don't know if you can see them. They're right there. I recently switched up my office. So I got a shelf coming in and they're going to be sitting on that shelf for a while.
That would have been my vote. Yeah. What do you make like $40 profit? No, I got to keep those.
Yeah.
Collect items.
Yeah, something like that. If they go up too much in value over the next year or so, I might end up selling them. But for now, they're gonna find a place on a shelf.
Shoes are crazy. I remember being in high school. I graduated high school in 2010, but I remember being like a junior in high school and then just seeing the Freddy Krueger Air Force Ones. And even then they were expensive. I think like they retailed at like 200, 220, something along those lines. And then now they go for like 10 grand or something like ridiculous. And then I remember I never had a pair, but two of my friends had a pair. And then I don't talk to them anymore. So I have no idea whatever happened to those shoes. That, maybe you'll run into them one day at a thrift store.
Oh man, that would be the day. That would be the day.
Be a nice ROI.
Not bad.
They actually, you know what? Those Freddy Kruegers showed up on an episode of what's that show in Las Vegas? The pawn shop. They showed up on an episode on that. Yeah, Pawn Stars. And then they had, obviously, they rarely ever have an idea of what things are worth. They have to get an expert. And the guy literally came in like a suitcase with a security guard and then just opened it up. And then, they're worth a lot. It's crazy. So that leads into my next question. What is like the craziest shoe you've ever actually found and have been able to resell that you didn't end up keeping?
I'll do the first one because I haven't sold it yet. I'll give another example of something I've actually sold. But just like less than a month ago, I went thrifting at a Goodwill and I came across a pair of Nike Cortez from 2004. And it was a Jeff Staple collaboration, which his dunks, the pigeon dunks, go for an insane amount of money. And this is like an early collaboration because they're obviously so old. And there's really, I'm really not sure what they're going to end up selling for, but I paid $15 for them. And I've got them listed for $1,400 currently. And I think I have the lowest priced listing currently. So the first one to sell will be mine if they do, but there has been no sale history on eBay, but they're authentic and they're from 2004. It's a Jeff Staple collab. So that's super cool, especially if you find it at a thrift store. In terms of what I've sold, there's not like a sneaker that comes to mind. But I've sold a pair of Louis Vuitton heels that went for, I think I got them for $9 and they ended up being authentic as well. And those sold for $475 on Poshmark in a couple weeks. So there's been some pretty crazy ROI flips like that, but I don't think I've ever found any like super rare sneakers other than the ones that I'm still sitting on.
That's awesome. That's a crazy ROI. So Dalton, you said that you eventually transitioned into only selling shoes, but could you talk to us a little bit more about like the build up when you first started reselling? What were you reselling? How were you finding those items? Walk us through the business model and the progression over time.
Yeah. So whenever, like I mentioned, when I first got started, it was going to garage sales because we were watching rally routes on YouTube all the time. And every single weekend, we're going to garage sales and just selling a little bit of everything. And the ROI, especially, I haven't been doing garage sales too much since then, since I got mainly into shoes. But back then we were finding crazy, crazy deals and the ROI was insane. And so we were making a little bit of money while we were still working this job. I ended up getting fired from the job, long story short. And so I decided I'd go full time, just give it a shot. Cause we were making, a few $1,000s a month. It seemed like at that time we split up and we were like, had our own individual reselling business between me and my buddy that I was working with. And I decided I'd go try the full-time thing since we're making a few $1,000s a month. And I quickly realized after like 3 months of trying that I wasn't actually making a few $1,000s a month because I still needed to pay my bills with that money. I'm sure you guys, understand, like we got to take our profit, pay ourselves, and still be able to afford other inventory. And that's where I kind of ran into a roadblock. So I had to go get a part-time job as a server again. And in that part-time job, I was like, okay, I got to figure this out because I don't want to be a server any longer than I have to. So I dialed into the numbers. I looked into my, started spreadsheeting a lot more. And I realized that the most of one category that I was finding was shoes, and they were what was selling the fastest. And I could break it down to more of like a science. Like if I just write my bills out, figure out how much money I need to make every single month to survive. I know that on average, I'm paying $10 a pair for shoes. On average, they're selling for $30 after shipping and fees. So it's a $20 profit per pair. So then it's just I just need to pick up this many shoes every single week. And if I'm picking up the proper stuff that has a proper sell-through rate, it's going to sell fast enough that I will sell this amount every single month. And it just turned into more of like a science, and I could figure it out and haven't looked back.
Kind of going from there, how does the day-to-day in your business look like now? Like what numbers are you hitting, and like what did it take for you to finally leave your 9-to-5 waiter job or server job?
Whenever I quit my job, I feel like quitting the part-time job after I got fired. I failed at being a full-time reseller. I went back to get a part-time job. And the month that I quit was actually the same month that I cracked $10,000 in sales for the first time. My living expenses weren't anything back then. I had 2 roommates. And so my rent was cheap. I didn't have a lot of bills, so I didn't need a ton of money to survive. So the first $10,000 month was enough to pay me and keep sourcing new inventory. But since then, I'm living in my own apartment now, so obviously the business has had to scale up a little bit. But right now, my reselling business brings in between 15 to 20,000 in sales per month. I can't tell you the exact ROI off the top of my head. It's probably like what I pay taxes on is probably like 40%, 35 to 40%. But the top line sales is usually 15 to 20,000 per month. And that's all mainly used shoes, but I do dabble in new, but mainly used shoes on eBay and Poshmark and Merari.
What goes behind your reasoning to stay within those platforms and not kind of expand to other platforms?
It's just what I've found success in. It's funny you asked that because I have been over the past few months trying to get into Amazon. I know you guys are Amazon. I'm assuming that's your main platform, judging by the FBA on the Instagram. But like I said, this has only been going on for a few months. So I'm trying to get into Amazon. That's why I've been selling a little bit more new lately. I'm learning online arbitrage, but I'm still gated in things. I'm not opposed to branching out to different platforms. It's just eBay and Poshmark and a little bit of Mercari have just been the bread and butter for me. And, don't break something that's not fixed, or don't fix something that isn't broken, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of the
absolutely.
platforms that you're currently on, which one would you say is your favorite, and which one is your least favorite?
eBay is by far the favorite. eBay is the only platform of the ones that I listed that you can it's more of like a business feel. Like you can run coupons, you can do sales, you can, market to your customers. Everything else is just kind of listed, and Poshmark has that like social media vibe to it. So I don't hate Poshmark because it does bring in a decent amount of sales for me. My least favorite is Mercari. I really only list on there because it's just kind of like a sit and forget kind of thing, and it trickles in a few sales. So yeah, definitely eBay by far is my favorite, and Mercari is the least.
Mercari is crazy. Josh and I have some wild experiences.
Yeah.
Mercari is a different class of customer. I mean,
100%.
It's wild. I would have people negotiating with me like over $1. And then I'd finally be like, whatever. It's $1. Still gonna make plenty of money. Just send the bid, I'll accept it, whatever.
Yeah.
And then they go, after haggling for like an hour, then they go, oh, sorry, my credit card's maxed out. I need a few days.
Yeah.
What?
Like you can really, on that platform, you can do whatever you want. I mean, Logan and I would make jokes, but one time we were shipping something, and mind you, I'm working Amazon with Logan, so you have to follow these really strict rules. But we couldn't fit something. We didn't have a box that something fit in, so we just took 2 boxes, just put them on top, just duct taped all around, sent it. The guy says, nice packaging. He liked it.
5-star review. He loved it.
Yeah. There's no rules. Like, you can do whatever you want.
It's the Wild West over there.
It is the Wild West. It's a wild platform.
They should keep
I don't even respond to questions like messages on Mercari. I just ignore 100% of them.
It's crazy.
The one thing that I do appreciate about Mercari is they have that like they cap the offers that the customers can send. So if they try to offer you something less than, I think it's 20% off, they don't let them send the offer.
Nice.
So I just know if I'm getting a message, it's not worth my time. And if they send an offer, my margins are big enough that I can pretty much accept any offer that comes in. So yeah, I don't even care to deal with the customers on that platform.
Yeah, they're crazy. So your favorite platforms
go ahead.
Go eBay, Poshmark, Mercari. Is your revenue breakdown similar in that order?
Yeah, Mercari is like 5% of my revenue. eBay, I think the last I checked was like 55. Poshmark was the other 40, and then Mercari was 5.
So what's your typical for shoes? How long are you holding on to them? Are they selling like every shoe you buy month over month? You holding on to some of them for like 2 months? What's the holding cost like that on shoes?
So most of my inventory turns over every 90 days. I'm trying not to pick up anything that's going to take longer than 90 days to sell, unless it's going to be a lot more of a profit margin. Like for example, those Cortez that I brought up, I might sit on those for months, but if the right buyer comes along, $1,000 sale will be nice. But I try to stick to keeping everything under 90 days. So whenever something hits the 90-day mark on my eBay store, it gets tossed into a store category that marks it down 25%. And usually that does the trick. So if it's over 90 days, I can like register that as a bad pickup and just note that so I can improve my sourcing off of that. And if it passes that 90 days, like I said, it's going to get marked down 25%, and that usually clearances it out.
Yeah, I mean, but like for the one shoe you said that you'd sit on for a while, you said how much you paid for it? Like $15?
Yeah, $15.
Like, it's not terrible for even if you make that kind of sale.
Yeah.
How do you decide which platform you're going to put your items on?
I just list everything.
Cross-post?
Yeah, I just cross-post on everything. I use a cross-listing service, and like when I list on eBay, I just upload it to the cross-listing service and then just, hit the few buttons to post it on Poshmark or Mercari. Okay,
and is pricing consistent among platforms when you cross-post, or how do you do that?
I think the proper way to do it is to price differently per platform, but I don't do that. I'd say that I focus the majority of my business on eBay. So my pricing is in line with eBay's pricing, and then I cross list from there. But every platform does have different, values, I guess, on the same pair of shoe. So the proper way is to, priced differently, but I don't do that.
Yeah. Okay. So then when you're sourcing too, are you strictly looking at eBay data, or I guess I'll say primarily looking at eBay? I want to make sure that I'm going to sell it profitably here on eBay, but then these are my backup platforms. Is that kind of your mentality?
Kind of. Like I'd say 90%. That's the way I do things. I do have, since I've been doing this for a while, I do have enough data from Poshmark to know like the different kinds of things that sell on Poshmark, because Poshmark has a different algorithm. eBay's more search based, and the customer that shops on eBay is the kind of customer that is going to browse the web and try to find the best price. The Poshmark customer is more someone that's going to pop onto the Poshmark app and maybe either loosely search something like Nike shoes instead of Nike Dunk Low or whatever, or they will be scrolling their feed and then something will interest them and they'll make more of an impulse purchase. And keeping up with like trends and things that are just selling well among the crowd of people that shop on the Poshmark platform, I do the 10% of the time pick up things that I do anticipate to sell on Poshmark over eBay. Just because I know that it's better for that audience. But like I said, that's a very small percentage of my pickups.
So when we do like Amazon RA shopping, like there's, obviously there's some people that go into a store and literally scan every single item and just check the profitability for it. But then, as you go along, you pick up some tips and some tricks, right? So if you go to the same store long enough, you'll realize that there's one product that's always out of stock. So look at that, see what that is, or you start to see what's new in the store. So what are like some tips that you would give to like a new reseller going into any Ross or any Goodwill store, or do you go through every single shoe that's on the rack?
So honestly, when you're getting started, I do recommend going through every single thing on the rack, just to get an idea of what thing, because like on eBay, the data is so easy to read if you just understand what sell-through rate is and how to filter by sold. So you can just literally search everything and get an idea of, okay, this is priced this at the thrift store, this is what it goes for on eBay, the sell-through rate is this, so it should sell within those 90-day parameters. But as you get more advanced in reselling, like get more seasoned, like obviously I'm not looking up comps on every single pair of shoes that I'm thrifting. So you start learning more. And then after you've kind of got the basics down, I guess, you could go more advanced and try to keep up with like market research and like understand the shoes that are selling out on websites like Foot Locker or Finish Line, that kind of thing, and see why, like try to understand like why they're selling out so fast. Usually it's like a TikTok trend. Like right now, UGG Tasman slippers are the biggest thing in the planet, and they're sold out in certain colorways. So if you find UGG slippers at the thrift store, it might be worth picking up, even if 6 months ago they weren't worth picking up. So keeping up with trends, but just at the end of the day, just really understanding how to look up comps and understanding sell-through rate is what most people need to understand.
Yeah.
Could you kind of give an overview, if someone is looking to get into this game, what is a comp? What is a sell-through rate?
Yeah. So a comp is I think it stands for comparable sale or comparable listing. Sorry if I don't know the exact terminology, but it's a comparable listing. You go onto eBay and you can search something up. Say you search Nike Dunk Low, we'll use that as an example. And then you just go to filter, and then you can scroll down and toggle the sold tab, and then it'll show you all the sold listings over the past 90 days. And you can compare that because it'll show you the number at the bottom of how many times that shoe was sold in the past 90 days. You can compare that to how many is listed, and that'll give you a sell-through rate. So if there's 10 listed and 20 sold in the past 90 days, then it has a 200% sell-through rate. So for every, do the math like that. So if, on the flip side, if there's, 20 listed and 10 sold, it's a 50% sell-through rate. It's going to be a little bit slower to sell. If there's a lot listed and not a lot sold, that's the supply is outweighing the demand. And then if there's a lot sold and not a lot listed, it's vice versa.
Yeah. Do you have a target sell-through rate that you look at?
For me, I try to stick above 50 to 70%. Obviously, the higher, the better. The lower the sell-through rate, I'm trying to make sure that the profit margins are a little bit better.
That makes sense.
And Dalton, you're based out of Florida, right?
Correct. Yeah.
And so one thing that I've always heard is that Florida is like a hub for a bunch of resellers. Have you ever ran into any reseller like at a store and had to like compete with them to like get the like the right shoe, or just like kick it with them, or how's your experience been like interacting with other resellers out when you're out and about?
Yeah, of course. There's a ton of competition here, but there's also a ton of inventory here. So I think that, like, of course, I hear that there's tons of competition in Florida all the time, but I also think that Florida has significantly more and better inventory at basically in whatever sourcing route you take, whether it's thrifting or retail arbitrage, whatever it is. Like, I think we have better inventory than a lot of other places in the country. So yeah, I run into people all the time at the thrift store. Definitely run into a lot of resellers if you go to like Nike outlets or outlet stores. I run into people at Ross, Burlington, everywhere I go, there's resellers, but I feel like 99% of resellers don't really know what they're doing. Even in the stores that I go into and there's competition, there's still other stuff for me. And there's also, most resellers don't niche down into one single category. So say I go into a thrift store and a reseller just spent the last few hours there. They're probably not as knowledgeable in the shoe category as I am. They might pick up the obvious flips, like, maybe if there's a pair of Jordans or something, they'll pick up the obvious stuff, but they might miss out on a lesser known brand that's on the shelf. And same goes for, the outlet sourcing. That one's a little bit tougher, but I feel like a lot of people that source at outlets and retail stores, they might be sourcing for Amazon. So there might be some other flips that might not be good Amazon flips, but they might be good eBay flips. So it's like just understanding that everybody has a different business, and the majority of resellers are new resellers. I don't really try to let the competition get to me. Just kind of try to ignore it, and I welcome it. I talk to a bunch of guys that are resellers that are technically my competition, but I'm still doing fine. They're doing fine. So I think there's enough to go around.
Yeah. Absolutely. And you touched on something that it resonated with me, is that there's a bunch of competition, but nobody's going to source those shoes as good as you. We just interviewed the founder of a repricer for Amazon, Go Aura, and he kind of said something similar, because they ask him all the time too, like, okay, isn't Amazon saturated, right? He's like, yeah, there's a lot of sellers, but there's not a lot of good sellers, right? If you're good at something, it doesn't matter how many people are doing it. You're if you're the cream of the crop, you're still going to rise to the top, right?
Yeah.
And that's funny, because me and Logan actually have a story about that. When I originally started selling on Amazon, one of the biggest items was a Mecha Godzilla, right? Like back 2 years ago, and a bunch of new sellers would go in there and just get the Godzillas, and they'd leave some off to the side. But what they didn't know is if you were just to grab those ones on the side and bundle them with other ones, your profit margins were surpassed. It would be a lot higher than they would if you were just selling them individually. And you could bundle them all day long, because everyone would just leave them there and they would just search the barcode versus doing like a title search. So
there's giant mecha and the giant axe Kong, right? Is that it?
Yeah.
Or the giant Godzilla?
Something like that. I mean, there was a bunch of different.
You had the FBM
bundles.
The King Kong and the Mecha Godzilla.
Yeah. I think a lot of people are just lazy. Their ambition stops at following people on Instagram and looking at their stories and looking at their posts, because I don't know exactly what flip you're talking about, but I'm assuming at that time there was a ton of people posting their finds on Instagram. Like, I found the Godzilla, I found this. So everybody knows that it's a bolo per se, but they don't want to do the extra step of research or joining a community like through Discord or something and learning those little minute details. They just take everything at face value of, oh, it's a bolo, I'm gonna go pick it up, and don't learn like deeper knowledge in the category or whatever it is that they're doing.
Yeah, it's
right.
100% true.
Right, because what you're doing is you're finding discrepancies in the market, right? So I like what you're saying. It's like, I feel like you're saying study the market. You learn the market, you're gonna find the steals.
Yeah, 100%.
Go ahead,
what stores you like going to? So I was just curious if you wanted to dive deeper into what are your sourcing strategies. Where do you like to go? When do you like to go there?
So lately, I've been trying to up my average listing price. So I'm sourcing at places that I can find the most consistent items that I can list at a higher listing price, obviously. So a lot of the times lately I've been sourcing at like Plato's Closet or the more retail locations like the outlets or Ross, Marshalls, Burlington, that kind of thing. But I do really love sourcing at your average everyday thrift store, like all the Goodwills in Florida. Like I'm not gatekeeping anything. I'll tell you right now, if you live in Central Florida, just Google Goodwill, and they're putting stuff out every single day. There's not really, there's some bad times to go sourcing. I'll let you figure that out yourself, but there's so much to be found at the thrift stores in, at least where I'm at, in the entire state of Florida, that, I can't get enough of it. I love sourcing at Goodwills and other small thrift stores in the area.
You said
And
you want
so-
to increase your average listing price right now. So do you know what your average sale price is right now? And then why do you want to increase that?
So there's a couple reasons. My average sell price right now is just under $60 on eBay, at least. eBay is the only one that gives you, that much of a breakdown. So on eBay, my average sell price is $60, and that's including shipping and all the fees that I'm paying on that. The reason that I want to increase my average listing price is because I want to decrease the amount of sourcing I'm doing every week. And the reason for that, as silly as it is, short form content has blown up for me over the past couple months, and it's a very significant amount of my income, and I enjoy doing that a little bit more. So I am trying to get to the point where I can just wear a GoPro into the thrift store and pick up the stuff that I know would do good in content, and not have to pick up stuff like Vans. Even though Vans are like my number 3 in terms of volume seller, they're a lower priced seller. So I have to sell a whole lot more of Vans to make the same amount of money as a few of these other shoes. But if I cut out brands like Vans out of my listing, it's going to be a whole lot harder for me to source and consistently list the amount that I had been listing up to that. So I've dialed back my listing, just been listing things that I can list a little bit higher of a price so I can sell fewer things, still make around the same money, and put more effort into consistently putting out content.
And we could definitely tell that you're big into the content space. Obviously, that's how I found you a year ago. I've been following your stuff for a while. You put me on Clouds. I had no idea what On Clouds were until you said it was a bolo at a thrift store. And then and obviously your setup. I mean, we see it in some of your videos too. Like you have the full monitor plus the extra screen up top. Super
Yeah,
dope.
dude,
Actually, that little clip that I saw that you weren't even talking about your setup inspired me to get a 3 monitor setup. And I was joking with Logan the other day. I sent him a picture. I was like, is this too many monitors? Because I had the 3 monitors, the laptop open, and then my iPad to the side.
No, there's never too many monitors.
No, absolutely not. But kind of switching gears, how did you come up with the idea to create a shoe tree and kind of start marketing that? And do you plan to like expand the Dalton product brands? Do you expand to get shoe cleaners, even though you just made a reel saying that you just need some soap and a scrubber?
Yeah. Currently, my mindset's not to expand it into anything else. The way I came up with the shoe trees is, before I sold shoe trees, one of the most common questions I'd get on Instagram specifically is what it is that I'm putting in my shoes to take pictures of them. Because if you're listening to this and you don't know what a shoe tree is, it's just it's an insert for the shoe that fills the shoe out so it looks like it's on someone's foot, so you can take better product pictures of them. And so I always had them, and most of them on the market were super cheap. Like I was buying them from IKEA for $1 or $2 a piece, and since I was listing so many shoes, they'd break within like a couple weeks, and I just have to keep replacing them until I found some better ones. But so many people were asking me about it, and I was to the point where I was putting effort into making content, but I didn't really have a direction, and I didn't really have it wasn't exactly financially wise of me to be putting so much effort into it. So I thought about that, and I was like, I'm putting a lot of effort into this. I'm not making any money. I need some kind of product. And I didn't want to just like slap my face on a t-shirt and sell merch. So the thing that came to my mind was, so many people are asking about these shoe trees. What do I got to do to figure out how to sell my own shoe trees? So that just sparked the many different phone calls with manufacturers, making sure that I could get some higher quality ones, because I didn't want to slap my logo on some IKEA style shoe trees that are going to break after a week. I want to make sure I had the highest quality ones on the market. And I also had an idea. I don't think that anybody else sells a small shoe tree other than me. I could be wrong about that, but I don't think there's any other ones offered. And so I had the idea of offering a smaller one for like women's shoes, because I sell a lot of women's shoes and the large shoe trees don't exactly fit in there. So I found somebody that can manufacture a large and a small, and the rest is history.
All right, Dalton. So I got some spitfire questions here for you. Okay.
Sure.
You got to answer within a second or two. If
Okay.
not, you're gonna have to turn over your inventory so that we can sell it on eBay for you.
Perfect. All right.
So first question: Legoland or SeaWorld? Which one's better?
SeaWorld.
Crocs or Nikes?
Nikes.
Favorite sport that's not baseball?
Oh man, basketball.
On Clouds or Hoka's?
On Clouds.
Favorite shoe tree brand?
Dealing with Dalton shoe trees.
Ooh, got him. Favorite social media platform?
TikTok.
Nice. And then lastly, who is your favorite social media influencer who inspires you?
Phoenix Resale.
Oh, I've never heard of Phoenix Resell. All right, I'm gonna have to look this one up. Let me write that down.
He does video games and he does Amazon. But his content is, you can tell he's one of the best content creators in the reselling space. I think most of his videos are very thought out and well produced, and I just enjoy watching them.
Nice.
Awesome. Dalton, thank you so much for joining us today. Viewers, thank you so much for watching. Dalton, if you want to go ahead and tell everyone where they could find you if they want to connect.
Sure. I'm dealing with Dalton on all platforms, mainly on TikTok and YouTube. I do Instagram and Facebook as well. And if you want to pick up some shoe trees or any other resources that I offer, you can find me at dealingwithdalton.com.
Awesome. So we'll be sure to put those down in the description. Dalton, thank you so much. Viewers, we'll see you on the next one. Peace.
Peace.